Hi, this is Eric from Longbox Review at longboxreview.wordpress.com. Hi everyone, I'm back today to talk about some new titles that I've read recently. And a little bit later on, at the end of the podcast, there is a special interview that I did with my wife, who attended Emerald City Comicon with me. We talk about our experiences at Emerald City Comicon. So stick around for that. So a few months ago, I was looking through previews and I saw quite a few new titles coming out that interested me. And so I ordered those, and I have 4 of those today that I'm going to talk about. First up is Hoax Hunters. This is out from Image Comics. This is a number 0 issue. Let's see, this is story by Michael Morrissey and Steve Seeley, art by J.M. Ringget, letters by Jim Campbell. So this comic I picked up solely on the cover image alone, and the cover was done by Steve Seeley. It's a very simple cover, but very eye-catching to me anyway. It's a white background with the Hoax Hunters logo, but more importantly, it has a astronaut suit with crows flying out of it. These black crows just kind of flying out off to the upper left of the page. And so that alone sold me. I wanted to try this out. It's number 0. It was $2.99 from Image, so I decided to pick it up. What's nice about this, I guess, in the inside cover, you get the basic premise of the series. I'll read that right now. Chupacabra, Yeti, the Montauk Monster, all the creatures of folklore, legend, and internet fame. What if they were real? They'd be made to appear fake by a reality TV show, of course. Hoax Hunters is that show, though to their viewing audience, their goal is the exact opposite, seeking out YouTube sensations, tabloid creatures, and reported monsters and proving them to be false. The Hoax Hunters demonstrate that the truth isn't out there. What this premise doesn't reveal is that the group of Hoax Hunters not only go out and disprove to their viewing audience all of these fantastic things, but they are agents of a sort that are told to go out and do this stuff, masquerading as a reality TV show. These 3 agents are the leader, Jack, although curiously you don't find out what his name is until very late in the story. That was interesting, and I think not necessarily needed, but I like to know the names of the characters as I'm reading them. Second is the female of the group, Reagan, who herself is an oddity of nature in that she has apparently has electrical powers of some sort. And last but not least is Ken Cadaver, the appropriately named character because he looks like a Walking Dead of a sort. And just as the cover revealed, they are investigating in this issue the appearance of a 1960 astronaut suit in Russia and the curious combination of the suit and these crows. And I won't go into any spoilers on this. If this sounds interesting, you should check it out. I enjoyed the issue. I like the story so far in this first issue, or number 0 issue. I think I've talked about this before, or maybe I've blogged about it or put it out on Twitter, but I really don't understand this number 0 thing. This story gets you into the world of Hoax Hunters. You're introduced to the characters. You got this really interesting thing they're investigating. Why not just have a number 1 issue? Put number 1 on the cover. There's your number 1 issue. I don't understand why they do this number 0 thing. Anyway, they did. But I liked, like I said, I liked the story, the part where you get the background of the astronaut suit, and I won't go into detail there either. That was a nice little bit of character to kind of get you caring about this thing, this creature, this astronaut suit. And you also find out throughout the story that Jack is a bit of a badass. He gets into a few fights and he's able to hold his own. Like I said before, Reagan has electrical powers, but she doesn't really get to use them. Just the threat of them. And then Ken Cadaver, not only does he look like death warmed over, but he also has some sort of psychic ability as well, which is very helpful in the story. And in the very end, they get a new member, which could prove interesting. As to the art, it's very stylized. It's heavy on inks and thick black lines. The colors are muted for the most part, but this all works very well for the tone of the story. The only complaint I guess I have of the art is sometimes the characters look a little bit off between page to page or panel to panel, but not too much so. In the back of the issue, there's a preview for Hoax Hunters #1, which is actually drawn by someone different, and that person is Axel Medellin. And curiously, the art by Ringget in #0 I actually prefer over Medellin's art for the #1 issue that's coming out. There's nothing wrong with the Medellin art, but it looks like pretty much any other comic book art that you would see on the shelf. So I kind of, like I said, I like the stylized art of Ringget in #0 better, and especially when it comes to Ken Cadaver's look. Here in the #1, he looks more or less normal except for how pale he is. But I think his look in #0 actually makes him look more of an interesting character. So after reading this first issue, will I be continuing with the series? I don't think so. As interesting as this first issue was, and it actually really was, I don't see that I will continue with it. The premise is not quite enough for me to go with it, but I did enjoy this introduction to this universe. Next up is the first of 3 titles that start with S. This is Brian K. Vaughan's and Fiona Staples' Saga. Now, with Hoax Hunters, I picked it up purely on the cover image alone, but when I heard that Brian K. Vaughan was writing a new comic book series, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to pick this up. I loved Brian K. Vaughan's work on Y the Last Man. Ex Machina was excellent as well. He's done other things that I've read that I've enjoyed. He's a great writer. He tells great comic book stories, and I'm sure that this title, Saga, will be no different. This is put out by Image Comics. As I said, Brian K. Vaughan writes it. Fiona Staples is drawing it. Letters and design, it says, by Phonographics. And interestingly, it says coordinated by Eric Stevenson. I'm not sure what that means, but there you go. That's the credits. One thing of note about Saga, it is $2.99 for 44 pages. I'm going to let that sink in just for a second. 44 pages for $2.99. That's amazing. I don't know how that works in today's industry where 20 pages seems to be the norm for at least the big two, especially at $2.99. This is a great book. It's not done on cheap paper. It's very nice paper. It looks fantastic. Until now, I was not very familiar with Fiona Staples' art, other than I've heard that she is a good artist. And this introduction to her work proves that out to me. It's interesting, her art, we'll just start with the art, I guess, instead of what I was going to do, since we're on the topic. But it's interesting because she does there's a lot of angular lines in her work, especially when it comes to faces and chins and things like that. So you get these sharp angles, but it works very well. It looks great. But what I really like about Fiona Staples' art in this title is how expressive the faces are, especially the eyes. I don't know what she does because her art is kind of simple in its line work, but yet it accomplishes so much on an emotional level when these two characters, and I'll get to that in a second, but when the two characters are experiencing some things, and you see the emotion on their face, the pain, the anguish, the horror, the love. It's amazing what Fiona can do. And a lot of that, like I said, it's simple line work for the most part, but it says art by, so I'm assuming that she also does the colors as well, and it's a very lovely comic art-wise. I'm very impressed with this. As to the story itself, it revolves around a couple newly married and having their first child. The kink to that, of course, is that they come from two different worlds, literally, and these worlds are at war with each other. So these two people were fighting against each other, at least their worlds were, and somehow they met, they fell in love, they conceived a child, and that's where issue number 1, or chapter 1 as it says on the cover, starts, that they are having the baby. And Vaughn writes these great characters from the get-go. He also, so this world that Saga inhabits is one of built on fantasy tropes, I guess you'd say. One of the female character, Alana, she has wings, these gossamer wings, I guess I would describe them as, and her husband Marco has these ram horns and these pointed ears, and that's not all. So you get those kind of creatures, but also winged creatures. There's a monkey-looking like character here at the beginning of the story, and then these humanoids with computer monitors for heads. We meet one of those kinds of characters, and it's interesting because in a couple brief moments, these images flash on these monitors, and then they go right away, and it's a nice reveal of what's going on in the head, per se, of these characters that are like that. I do question, though, starting the story off with it's with a baby. It's kind of like that old TV trope of when you're in trouble with a TV show, what do? You either throw in a cute kid or the characters have a baby, right? So because of that bias that I've been fed over the years, I question the story potential because of this infant, and I'm not so keen on the narration that goes on here, which is the babies. Well, that means, of course, that the baby lives old enough to be able to talk or write, whatever this happens to be, to look back on the past that we are seeing as we read this story. I'm not all that keen on that kind of narrative device. But this is Brian K. Vaughan, so, benefit of the doubt, huge benefit of the doubt. Despite those potential misgivings, the story overall is just wonderful. I really enjoyed the antagonists of the story. There's a bounty hunter that we get introduced to that is after the couple, and he's not just your typical bounty hunter. And I would expect that from Brian K. Vaughan. He doesn't write typical characters. He writes characters. He writes really rich characters. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where all of these various storylines and characters end up and interact and go to. It'll be, I think, a really great story in the making here, and I'll be with it probably until the end. Next up is the second of our S titles, Supercrooks. Supercrooks. Say that 5 times fast. This is by Icon, written by Mark Miller. Artist is Lanil Yu. Co-plotter is Nacho Vigalondo. Inker Jerry Alangillan. Colorist Sunny Go. Letterer is VC's Clayton Cowles. And there you go. I picked this up because of the tagline, which is on issue 1. There are too many superheroes in America. Let's go somewhere else. Now, I've been disappointed by Mark Miller's work in the past, specifically Nemesis, so I have not picked up his other series that have come out since Nemesis. There was one though, Superior. I really liked the look of that. I wanted to read that story, but because of the bad taste in my mouth, so to speak, caused by Nemesis, I did not pick it up. So it was with trepidation that I decided to pick up Supercrooks. But because it was centered on villains and this idea of, why stay in New York or LA or Chicago or whatever big city that superheroes are set in, stories are set in, and go somewhere where there isn't so many superheroes, like somewhere in Europe or somewhere in Asia or whatever. And so this story intrigued me from that premise. This is my first exposure to Leinil Yu's work, and I like it, at least as far as I remember. I like it. It was pretty good storytelling. I wouldn't say clean work, but not messy, not as stylized, say, as the work in Hoax Hunters #0. I like the use of shading and color in the issue as well. But as to the story, we get introduced to a few characters here. Johnny Bolt, it seems to revolve around him, at least for this first issue. For the most part, there's another character in here that he's helping out, and that's where we get the genesis of the whole idea. Hey, let's go somewhere else. But as I said, Miller's Nemesis was such a disappointment to me that I didn't expect much on this. I figured I'd pick up the first issue and then I could drop it easily if I wanted to. But I'm really pulled into this story. I like it. The things that Miller does well in here. The first thing when I read through the issue the first time, the first thing that really popped out at me was the relationship between Johnny Bolt and his girlfriend Casey, where they have this conversation in a diner, and I thought, wow, this is Miller doing good work, because you have these characters who know each other, they've had this relationship, things haven't worked out. And then this old mentor of theirs, Carmine, shows up, and that's, like I said, that's where they get the genesis to go outside of America to help Carmine out, because he's in trouble. And the reason he's in trouble is that he goes into a Las Vegas casino and tries to rip off the casino. Well, and he does that through the use of a precog that's outside. Well, of course, they figure out what's going on and threaten Carmine, and he better pay him back or else. But what really struck me too, much like the scene in the diner between Casey and Johnny, is this poor kid, this precog, who, because of the precognitive ability, knows what's going to happen, and it's pretty gruesome. So, you get the shock value there, but it's kind of a neat idea, And also, it started me thinking, what if you were a low-level precog or a low-level teleporter, nothing on, or maybe not necessarily low-level, but perhaps, you don't have these grandiose ideas of taking over the world or robbing the world banks or, things like that. You just want a job that can use your abilities. And so, what does that mean exactly? So there's this one guy here, he's a teleporter, and he's working for the casino, and you have the precog, that would be useful in various things, various jobs. So, that's a whole other comic right there as far as I'm concerned. So I'm looking forward to reading the rest of this. I believe this is a limited series. Anyway, this book reminds me, you get the caper plot, kind of like an Ocean's 11 type thing. Helping out Carmine. You get the focus on the villains of this world, which is something that appeals to me. I've really enjoyed reading Incognito and the criminal series. So you always get the focus on the either you want to call him villain or anti-hero depending on the story, but you get that focus. I'm looking forward to seeing how this all resolves itself, and this may be, Miller gets a lot of flack, and I admit I've pointed this in his direction as well, but he seems to write comics that intending to be turned into movies. Nemesis was like that. I know that's been optioned. I don't know if they're making it yet, but I can see Supercrooks being one of those movies. But this is actually one that I wouldn't mind seeing. Finally, I have from Boom Studios, this is also a limited series, Superbia. This is created and written by Grace Randolph, art by Russell Dodderman, colors by Gabriel Casada, letters by Steve Wands. Again, this is one of those where I saw the cover and thought that looked interesting. So you have the cover shows for issue number 1. It's got these statues in the background. It's got these statues in the background of the male superheroes, but in front of them are the females in their lives. So anything with a female-centric cast is something that I enjoy reading. So I was curious as to what this was. I kind of like the Supercrooks thing. What about those characters that are, the kind of the forgotten characters, or the characters where the spotlight isn't on them, and what if you throw that spotlight on them? And that's kind of what I thought this title would be, and it is to a certain degree. It's not really about the superheroes. It's about like I said, the females in their lives. It does rely a little bit too much on some, spoofing or satirizing, the comic tropes. You got your Superman-like character with his ex-supervillain girlfriend. You have a Batman and Robin-like character who, and I'm going to spoil a little bit here. So if you don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead for a few minutes. But they are they're shown to be lovers. So you have the whole Batman and Robin being gay thing in the characters that are in here in Superbia. You have a Captain America-like character, a Wonder Woman-like character. So you get those familiar tropes. But they're spun a little bit differently, and there are some really interesting characters or side stories, if you will, in this title. As I said, there's the Superman character. He is called Sovereign, and there's something a bit off about him. There's a scene in this issue that reminded me of a scene from the Golden Age comic by James Robinson from DC a few years back, where again, here might be spoilers if you haven't read Golden Age. If you haven't, you really should. But for those who have read it, there's that scene where the possessed body of Dynaman is doing some drugs. Well, that scene appears in here as well. You have the Wonder Woman-like character who is training her daughter to basically become her eventually. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is the son, who is basically ignored, cast aside by the mother, which is an interesting dynamic that you don't normally see in literature, let alone superhero comics. And then there's a few of the female characters that we're focused on. One is Eve White, who is, as it says here, just married to one of the superheroes, Bulldog. And so she's kind of our gateway into this community of heroes, this world. And she's worried about her husband. She fell in love with him, found out who he was because she was a nurse and was treating him in some in the past. But there's a few things odd about her. At the very beginning, she's looking over at some pills that are for the Captain America-like character, and you see her reaching for the pills. They're on a tray, on a counter. They don't appear to be anywhere near the edge of the counter, but the next panel shows the tray and all the pills spilling onto the floor, which to me suggests that she shoved them off, but all she says is she didn't recognize some of the medication, so she was curious, blah blah blah. So there's that thing. Maybe she's a little too eager. I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out what's going on there. And then the wife of the Captain America-like character, who is called Marine Omega, is not quite who she appears to be, and that's revealed at the end. As to the art, I liked it. It reminded me in many panels, not throughout, but in many panels, reminded me of Tim Sale's art. Maybe a little bit of Darwin Cook thrown in there. Maybe those are influences of Mr. Dodderman's. But again, kind of like Hoax Hunters, it was a little inconsistent at times. There's a scene where, I don't know, there's two characters right next to each other, and I don't know, the anatomy looks a little bit off, not quite to scale, but easily forgivable. The rest of it is very good. The coloring job I thought was really nice on this as well. Overall, I really enjoyed this issue, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series. It's really nice that it's a limited series, so I get a taste of something new, and I don't have to spend a lot of money on it. This, I don't think I mentioned, this title, unlike all of the other ones that I've reviewed so far, which were $2.99, Superbia is $3.99. But you can, if you get your discount at various places, it's worth picking up. There you go. That's my look at 4 new titles that have just come out recently. I'll be doing more of these kinds of reviews because I did order even more new titles, so I'm looking forward to talking about those. So up next is that interview that I mentioned with my wife, where we talk about Emerald City Comicon and our experiences there. Please stick around for that. Remember, you can always leave comments at the blog, longboxreview.wordpress.com, or you can email me at longboxreview@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. All right, I'm here with my lovely wife, Kitra.
Hello, everyone.
To talk with my wife about our experiences at Emerald City Comicon. I wanted to get her perspective in particular because she's not a comic book fan, but she still enjoys going to the con, I think. She's nodding her head. Kitra, why do you like the Emerald City Comicon?
Well, my favorite thing about it is that it's our annual trip, and I just get to spend the weekend with you doing what you love the most.
See, isn't that great? To have someone in my life that supports the things that I love like that, that's so awesome. And I want everybody to know that, Kitra, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there anything about the con in particular, though, that you enjoy?
Well, it might not be very popular, but my favorite part about it is the media guest. I know a lot of comic book fans go for the comic book panels and the collectibles and stuff like that, but I really love the media guest. The highlight every year is Will Wheaton to me.
Will Wheaton, yeah, his awesome hour.
He is about the funniest man, I think, on the face of the earth.
Yeah, he's very entertaining, that's for sure.
Except for maybe Nathan Fillion.
Which Emerald City Comicon needs to get as a guest.
And Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh, well, they had
Felicia
Day last year. So you get Nathan Fillion, Neil Patrick Harris, and you got yourself a little Dr. Horrible reunion.
Let's not leave out Joss.
Could you imagine what Emerald City would be if Nathan Fillion and Joss Whedon both came? It'd be a madhouse.
It would be all about the media guest.
Which, as you mentioned earlier, it's not always the most popular thing for the comic book purists out there. I don't mind a bit of the media guests. It's kind of fun to see that, especially Will Wheaton. I will agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Great entertainer and a fellow geek. Okay, so what was there anything else at the con that you particularly enjoyed this year?
I fell in love with Kirby Crackle this year.
That's right.
They're awesome. We went to their acoustic hour. We missed their concert at Hard Rock, which we were really disappointed about, but went to their acoustic hour, and I fell in love with them. They are amazing.
Yeah.
And they had the coolest T-shirt at the con.
Which you bought.
Which I bought.
Yeah.
Just a little heart right on my heart.
And you wear it actually quite a bit.
All the time.
Ever since the con, yeah.
It's my favorite new shirt.
Yeah. And looks very good on you, by the way.
And we bought all those CDs, and we've been really enjoying listening to those.
Yes, and our granddaughters, I think I've tweeted about this, but our granddaughters love Roll Over and constantly request listening to it. So yeah, that's good. Okay, so Will Wheaton.
I'm a big fan of the Comic Shop song.
Oh yeah.
That one rocks.
Yeah, that one is good too. There's a few more that I like. There's Secret Identity and I can't remember the name of the other one, but anyway, yeah, there's some really good stuff on there. So you like Will Wheaton a lot. We really enjoyed Kirby Crackle. Anything else? How about anything you thought could be improved at the con? Your experience at the con?
I always feel like there's not enough time. They have so much stuff and so many things to do packed into just a few days, but I know it's awesome having all the options and all the choices that you can pick from, but unfortunately for us, sometimes we want to do everything and we can't. So we have to pick and choose, and I'm always disappointed that we missed out on some panels or funny hours, but I always leave feeling like I missed out on something.
Yeah. And that's...
Even though we had a great time and did a lot, I always feel like there's more we could have done, and so I'm always a little disappointed about that.
See, you just summed up exactly how I felt about this year's con, especially. We've gone the last three years. This would be the third year that we went, and after that first year, which was my first exposure to Emerald City Comicon, well, both of our exposure to Emerald City Comicon, but that was our first big con since we went to the San Diego Comic-Con back in 1996. So it was this huge gap of time between these two cons, and coming back to it 3 years ago in Seattle, it was just so overwhelming. And you remember how I was, right? I was just overwhelmed, and
he was giddy.
I was giddy. I was very giddy. So then we go the second year, the year before this one, and I feel I'm more seasoned about my con going experience, and but I did a lot of things. I attended a lot of the panels that I wanted to. I saw the media guests for the most part that I wanted to. But this year, it seemed in particular that things were, like you say, there was just so much stuff to do and so little time to do it. It seemed like there were a few panels that I missed that I really, really wanted to go to, because, as you reminded me during the con, if you go to all this stuff, you're not going to be able to do all the shopping that I wanted to do, which is a huge component for me when I go to the con. I want to complete those runs. I want to get those back issues. And it's always fun to go shopping, which you are a huge help in.
I was going to say, that's another one of my very favorite parts of going to the con, is like I start asking for a list from you several weeks beforehand, just to...
A few months, you mean?
Just because going there, it's like a little treasure hunt. It's like he gives me the list, and I get to go find the treasure, and I love it. It's fun.
Yeah, and especially after last year when you found... So just so everybody knows, there's anybody who's been to a con knows that there's a lot of vendors selling their comics, right? But there was at Emerald City last year that actually Kitra discovered. I kind of passed over this guy because his books, the bags were kind of dirty looking and old and stuff, and I don't like to buy really crappy comics. So I kind of turned my nose up at this guy and walked past him.
Snob.
Yeah. And so I'm off looking at what I can consider better vendors. Their books look a little bit better. And then Kitra comes over and basically drags me over to this guy saying, look at all the stuff I found. And I'm looking at it and going, holy crap, there's a ton of stuff on my list that this guy has. And yes, it wasn't the best quality in some cases, but they were cheap comics, and I was able to buy a bunch of issues that I wanted. So that was great. So this year, I really wanted to go find this guy again. So, but there was a little wrinkle in that at first. We'll get to that in a second. So anyway, I eventually found the guy again, thanks to you, Kitra, that I was able to discover this person, and whose name I can't remember now. Sorry, but anyway. Maybe I'll put that in the show notes if I can find the receipt that I got from him. anyway, so I the shopping was great. I bought a lot of books. I finished a few runs of things, which is always awesome. So anyway, yeah, there, like I said before, there's so much to do, so little time. I had to miss some things, including one panel I really wanted to go to, which was the Gail Simone panel. But the shopping in this case was a little bit more important. I was able to speak to Gail Simone very briefly and tell her how much that I love her work. So that was good enough for me. That's why I wasn't so disappointed about not going to the panel. But Gail Simone happened to be sitting nearby a particular person that I want to talk with you about. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I was really looking forward to in preparation to going to the con was getting a sketch from a particular artist, whom I found out gave free sketches, which is basically unheard of at cons these days. And I wanted a sketch from this particular artist because of his work on Fantastic Four or the title FF, and that of course is Barry Kitson. So when I saw that he was going to be at Emerald City, I'm like, I gotta get a sketch from this guy, or at least try to get a sketch from this guy. And so, opening day, Friday of Emerald City Comicon, we join the huge crowd that's there to get in at 2:00, and our plan is to first of all get to the exclusive booth and get our T-shirts and prints and everything that we were going to get. Well, actually, the plan was that you were going to stand there and
I get in the exclusives line, and you were going to go get in line for the Barry Kitson sketch.
Right, because one thing I did read online was because he does the free sketches, his lines get long very quickly. So I was going to go get in line for that. And okay, so that's another thing. That's another great thing about having you along. It's always great to have a partner to stand in line with you or for you, but Kitra actually likes doing that, right?
Yes, I love it.
Which I think is totally weird, but I love it. So
it makes me valuable.
You're much more valuable than just as a line stander.
A line stander.
Anyway, so Kitra's off doing that, standing in line for the exclusive, which is huge. The line is just, I can't believe how long the line was this year compared to the year before. So then I go get in line to get a Barry Kitson sketch, and there are 5 people ahead of me. And so I'm standing there, and finally, I don't know what's going on. I've never gotten a sketch before. I don't know how things work. I see people in front of me. They've got sketchbooks. I mean, they're like pros at this, I guess, or something like that. And I'm just standing there. I don't know what I'm doing. So there's this one guy ahead of me. I start talking to him and find out, he does do free sketches, but you got to stick around for it. You can't just, say what you want and walk away.
Put your name on the list.
That's right. You can't put your name on a list. So I'm thinking, okay, I can already see where this is going. This is the first day of the con. There are 5 people ahead of me. I'm seeing what Barry Kitson's doing, and he's doing an awesome job, but, he's doing full body sketches. And eventually I find out, not only does he pencil it, he inks them and then watercolors them. So you can imagine how long that takes. And we did find out how long. We'll get to that in a second. So at one point I look over, I'm talking to this guy, but I look over and see you at the exclusives line, and you basically, so the line did this U-shaped thing against the wall and then and around that aisle, and then next thing I know, I see you at the wall, and then I'm talking to the guy some more, and all of a sudden I don't see you anymore. I'm thinking, oh no, the exclusive line is really going now. And at one point you actually call me. Mm-hmm. I can't remember why you called me though.
Because we were getting close and I couldn't see you anymore. And I texted you and you weren't answering, and I was not quite sure what exactly we were buying when we got up there.
Oh, that's right.
So
that's right. Yeah.
I was worried I'd get to the front of the line and not know what to get.
Right. So anyway, I do eventually see that you called me, and I call you back, and then that's when I realize I don't want to stand in this line. I see where this is going. This is going to take a long time, and so I leave the line and join you at the exclusive line. We go through that, and then you
you are insistent that we go back and get in line so I can get my sketch. And you remember what I said? I was like, no, I forget it. This is as much as I want the sketch from Barry Kitson. I don't want to stand in line all day, and that's what I'm thinking at this point it would take.
Mm-hmm.
But you, being the wonderful person that you are,
the stubborn person,
the wonderfully stubborn person that you are.
Well, you made the mistake of telling me how badly you wanted a sketch from this guy. And so I was going to get you that sketch regardless of what it took. So I went to stand back in line, and I kept telling you to go do your thing, go shopping, go to your panels, go do stuff, and I will stand in line. We found out that it was taking on average an hour per sketch, at least. And because you left the line, 2 other people got in line, so we were like 7 or 8.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there were only 5 more hours left of the con that night, but if you left the line, you lost your place.
Yeah.
And so it's like, the only way that we're going to get a sketch is if I stand in line all day Friday. And then if you're standing in line at the end of the day Friday, you get to be first in line on Saturday morning, and that was the only way it was going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. And I did, so yeah, you insisted on standing in line. I'm thinking, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. I'll go and there was a panel that I had to go, that I really wanted to go to. It was one of the DC panels. So, I went to that. I also wanted to, I mentioned that one comic book seller. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go find where he was, if he was at the con, and there was a few other vendors that I specifically were looking for. So I walked around, which is unusual because the first day I normally don't walk around the floor that much. Mm-hmm. We're usually at the panels. But I was able to do that. But I kept coming back to check on you and seeing that you basically had not moved in line hardly at all. Maybe, was it 1 person or 2 people that he got done that day? Or maybe it was more. He
got more done. He got about 4 or 5 sketches done that first day. I think he went from 2 to about 7. So I think he got about 5 done.
Okay, what that matches your time estimate for how long it took him to do those sketches. Okay. And so just so everyone knows, I did come, as I would leave and come back, and I would say, please, it's not that important to me, Kitra. Let's go. I don't want you standing in this line all day. Right? I said that, right?
You did say that, yes.
Thank you. But as she mentioned earlier, she's very stubborn when she wants to be, mm-hmm. and is very nice in trying to get me the thing that I said I really wanted. And so you did. You stood in line all Friday.
Yep, about 6 hours on Friday. I think it was like from 2 to 8, close to 8.
Oh my God, was it?
6 hours on Friday, and then I got to know Barry Kitson very well. We are great friends now.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was from England, so it was really fun to talk to him about that, and his helper John. I became pretty good friends with him too. So
yeah, he was a really nice guy.
They were both really nice. I was the only girl standing in line. And they were asking me what I wanted, and I basically told them I was standing in line for my husband, and so they made quite a big deal about that.
Okay, so what exactly did they say? What did Mr. Kitson say in particular about that? Do you remember?
Honestly, no. I was going to say it got brought up because they were talking about, because it was taking so long, they were saying that if you wanted just a headshot, that they would move you to the front of the line, but if you wanted a full body sketch, then it would be, the long wait. And so they asked me what I wanted, and I said, I'm standing in line for my husband. I know who he wants, but I don't know. I'm assuming he wants the full body, And they just laughed and thought it was pretty funny that I was standing in line for you. I don't know if it was funny, but cute. There was a chair at the front of the line, and a guy sat in it for like 3 hours, and finally Barry made him get up and let me sit down. It was very gentlemanly. It was very nice.
And you basically told me this that day, and then I was scared to come back because I didn't want to upset Mr. Kitson. or have him think I'm some jerk.
Mean guy making me stand in line all those many
Yeah,
hours.
exactly. So anyway,
It was amazing watching him work. I mean, just watching him draw. He's so talented.
yeah,
He was so talented and so nice, and it was amazing just sitting there getting to watch him do that. It was, my feet started to hurt, but it really didn't seem like 6 hours. It was just awesome kind of hanging out there. And what was really cool was that right across the aisle was the Comic Geek Speak guy, Pants.
Pants, yeah.
So I got to meet Pants, and I've seen him before, I know Eric is a big fan of theirs and listens to them quite a bit. And I've heard all about them. I've listened to a little bit, and we've seen them at the con before, and talked to them a little bit. But I got to talk to Pants quite a bit, and he'd come over every once in a while to see how close I was, and he came over and checked my sketch out and had told me to bring it over to him when it got done. And so it was fun hanging out with Barry and Pants and everybody. And I was kind of disappointed. There was one panel on Friday night that I wanted to go to it was the voice talent.
Oh, yeah.
And they were going to be acting out scenes from popular movies in like Ren and Stimpy voices and Futurama and I think that would have been really funny. We were supposed to go do that together, and so we didn't get to do that because I was stubborn and standing in line.
Yes, and that I felt very bad for you because that was one of the few things that you mentioned about happenings at the con that you really wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
And so you didn't get to do that because of some stupid sketch desire that I had.
It wasn't stupid.
So
I did put my foot down on Saturday though. I told John and Barry that if I was hoping I wouldn't have to lose my place in line, but I was not going to miss Will Wheaton's awesome hour. I couldn't do it. And I'd have to walk away, and my sketch wasn't done when it was time to do that, but they were really cool about it, and they let me keep my place in line, and I got to go listen to Will.
Well, first of all, let's backtrack a little bit because it worked out very well in our favor because Barry was late getting to his booth on Saturday, so that set things behind. Yes. But what did Mr. Kitson say when you said something about going to see Will Wheaton?
Who's Will Wheaton?
Who's Will Wheaton? Yeah. And you could see the geeks all around that were around his table.
I am standing there going, is he serious? That's what I'm thinking at first, and then I'm trying not to say anything to offend him. Like, how could you not know who Will Wheaton is? He's only like the funniest guy on the face of the earth. But then he was sitting right next to, do you remember heard his name?
I don't. Avi, was it?
Yeah, I think.
Wow.
Anyway, he was sitting right next to a fellow artist and his wife from England as well, and she leaned over and she knew all about Will and Star Trek: The Next Generation and filled him in, and he basically looked up at me and he said, well, I don't know if going to see some TV actor is more important than getting a sketch from me, then I don't know about that. And then he laughed at me, but then he gave me a hard time a couple times after that my highlight of my con was Will Wheaton and not, I think, standing in line with him for 10 hours.
Yeah. So Saturday.
So it was good.
So besides that, so you were able, you got your place in line Saturday.
Yep.
You were still able to go to the Will Wheaton Awesome Hour, come back, got back in line. Was he there by that point?
Oh yes, he was.
Okay.
He wasn't there before we left.
Right.
But when we got back after.
And how many people were ahead of you at that point?
On Saturday morning?
Yes.
There was, I think, 2 or 3 people ahead of me.
Okay, so then 3 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in. I can't remember. I was in one of the comic publisher panels when I got a text from you saying that the sketch is done.
It's done.
And you came and found me and showed me the sketch. And so everyone knows, the sketch was of the Invisible Woman, Sue Richards. Because of the work that Barry Kitson did on, like I said earlier, Fantastic Four and FF. I absolutely love the way that he draws Sue. So I wanted a sketch of her. And so I have a nice sketch here. It's, like I said, it's Sue Richards. It's done in watercolor. It's the black and white costume that they currently have the Fantastic Four in the issues. And there's an inscription here: to Eric and Kitra, best wishes, Barry Kitson.
What was funny is he wasn't even going to make it out to Eric. He said that because I stood in line, that if he wanted him to make it out just to me, it could be my sketch and not Eric's. But I had to share. I was doing it for him.
Well, and you had told me that too, because that happened before the sketch was done.
Yeah.
And when you told me that, I'm like, you know what? It's yours.
No.
You put in the time.
For you.
But you put in the time.
For you. And
I'm sure, Barry probably thought I was some dork. So as far as I was concerned at that point, that the sketch is yours.
You're just a fan who has a cool wife, right?
Yes. And so I gladly will share this sketch with you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else about the Emerald City Comicon 2012 that you wanted to share?
Just as always, it was an awesome time. We always have such a good time there, and looking forward to going to the next one.
I was going to say, are you looking forward to next year's?
Well, yes.
If we can swing it this time.
We plan a lot of other family vacations, so I don't know if we'll get to go to the con next year.
Yeah, but you're still, regardless of that,
I am so excited
you would
to go
want
back.
to go.
I am so excited to go back every single year.
Yeah. It's going to be hard this year if we can't go.
I know. So let's make it happen.
Yeah, we'll see.
We're telling you, if you get Nathan, Emerald City Comicon leader, if you get Nathan, Fillion, Neil Patrick Harris, Josh, we're there.
Well, not just those guys.
We may have to miss. Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you coming onto the show and sharing your thoughts.
Anytime. Bye, everyone.